I managed to take an underdog Filipino side to qualify for the World Cup in FM24. And this is the tactic that allowed me to do that. So today, I'm going to explain how this underdog tactic works, why I think it's successful, and how you might be able to modify it or implement it into your own FM24 save. So the tactic is a 3-3-1-3 formation or a 5-1-1-3 in Football Manager. And I actually stumbled upon this tactic a little bit by accident, as it was one of the tactics that I used in the Playing with the Weirdest Tactics video. And this tactic took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting a 3-3-1-3 to perform well, but of all the weird tactics, it was the one that performed the best, guiding Crystal Palace to an 8th place finish, scoring a lot of goals, and doing really well in the match engine. So I decided with this Filipino squad that I might be able to modify that tactic to work as an underdog tactic because the personnel of my team seemed to match it very well. So with that in mind, what would you need in your squad to make this tactic work? And the biggest things are the kind of X in the middle here. These are the most important positions in this tactic. It's your two inside forwards or inverted wingers that play in these higher positions, your two complete wingbacks, and the player playing in the center that is connecting all of these pieces together. And fortunately for me with this Filipino squad, those are essentially the 5 or 6 best players in my team. Rafael Obermeyer and Simon Lingbo are my two wingbacks, Garrett Holtman and Kenshiro Daniels are my two wingers, and Oscar Arribas is my advanced playmaker in the center. And essentially 5 of my best 7 players in my team all come in those important positions. And essentially there's a huge emphasis on these players combining down the wings to help progress the ball forward and create attacking opportunities. So if you're looking at the makeup of your team and you're not so certain about your spine, but you have a midfielder that you really like who could pass the ball, which is a strength of Oscar Arribas here, as he has decent passing and vision for the level that we're playing at. And then you have strong wing play, then this is a tactic that might work for you with your team. In particular for this squad, Garrett Holtman has a ton of pace and acceleration, so he has excellent physicals. So when he's playing in that AML position, he's able to make those runs in behind to help stretch the defense. And my wingbacks in Rafael Obermeyer are excellent physically as well, but are pretty well-rounded, as well as Simon Lingbo, who has a similarly well-rounded attribute profile, can hold down those wide positions, play those complete wingback roles, and be able to contribute both attacking and defensively to help this tactic work. And another benefit to this tactic is that this Filipino squad struggles a little bit in the center back positions, with those being some of the weaker areas in the squad. So having 3 center backs, all of whom can cover each other, also helps to balance out the kind of lower level in those positions by having 3 center backs who, if one steps up, at least we have 2 people who can cover in behind. Now looking into the tactical instructions, I am using a balanced mentality as an underdog side, and in possession, we're keeping the attacking width at standard. It's already a very wide formation, and everything else is relatively simple. This is using a direct counter-attacking style of play, so we're going with more direct passing and a slightly higher tempo. And my team is pretty good at set pieces, so I also have play for set pieces on, but this is something that's more dependent on your own squad. For this formation, I'm also having my team counter, because again, this is a really counter-attacking tactic, and I'm having my goalkeeper distribute quickly, because we want to take advantage of being able to get in behind as much as possible. And finally, my center backs are really slow. So we are playing a lower defensive line, and we have quick players up top, especially someone like Holtman. So even with the low block, we are able to get in behind because he has the pace to get in behind from that starting position. So we have lower lines. We are dropping off more because, again, my defenders are really slow, so they are really vulnerable to getting in behind. So we want to make sure that the play is generally in front of us. I also ask my players to get stuck in and press more often in order to win the ball back as often as we can. Now, if you aren't a super underdog side like me, maybe you're more of a mid-table side, such as we were with Crystal Palace in the Weirdest Tactics video, there were a few things that we did to modify this tactic to be less of an underdog tactic. Notably, we did push the lines forward. So instead of lower lines, we had higher lines. Rather than dropping off more, they did step up more. And in that one, they did counter press as well. So you can make this a little bit more of an attacking and less of an underdog tactic if you want. But this is how I have the tactic set up for my underdog Filipino side. And overall, I have found this tactic to work really well. And the formation that this tactic seems to work best against is a 4-2-3-1 formation. And it seems like the reason for that is because we have the numbers in this area to be able to deal with a 4-2-3-1. Where the 4-2-3-1 can be really good is in these areas here. So you have an attacking mid, a AML, and an AMR. But we have 3 players and essentially a block of 6 here who are dealing with that front 4. So as a result, we are able to outnumber the opposition in those areas. And that seems to be where we get a lot of benefit. And looking at our schedule so far in World Cup qualifying, there were 2 big games where we played a 4-2-3-1 formation and we managed to win. The first was against a vastly superior South Korean side, where we came out in our 3-3-1-3, and South Korea actually employed a 4-2-3-1. And even with players like Sun Heung-min up top, we managed to shut them down because we had the formation to deal with it. Then in the match to get to the World Cup, we came up against an Uzbekistan side also playing that 4-2-3-1. But again, we managed to shut down their forward player and we managed to win the match 3-1. However, that isn't to say that this tactic can't be effective against other formations. We played Thailand away from home and they played a similarly defensive tactic, but we were kind of somehow still able to win the match. So the next question is, how does this actually play in the match engine? We can see how this might be a good defensive tactic and how going up against a 4-2-3-1 might work. But as we can see from our schedule, we've actually managed to score a decent amount of goals. We got 3 against South Korea, 2 against Thailand, and 3 against Uzbekistan. We haven't been short of goals. But how do these goals actually come? It's mostly coming from a build-up play where either these 3 players or these 3 players are able to connect, build the ball forward, and get the ball into the box to score goals. So this is an example of the build-up play that occurs with this formation, especially down the wings. In this instance, we have Obermeier here, who's playing as the left wing back. We are late in the game, so Arribas is now playing as the winger, and up here we'll have Sandro Reyes, who's playing as the advanced playmaker. So as we can see here, we're going to find these players connect as they kind of form a triangle, and we have players running in behind, so Obermeier is able to find Reyes on the width. Reyes is able to get in behind. He is able to cut the ball back to Sebastian Barak, who employs a wonderful finish. So that last goal was against South Korea, now moving to the match against Thailand. So as we can see here, we once again have that triangle with Arribas, Obermeier, and Holtmann. Holtmann is playing as an inverted winger on attack, so he is now looking to get in behind the defense. So when the ball falls into Arribas here, as we move forward, he's immediately looking to play Holtmann in behind. Holtmann's now one-on-one with his defender. He's able to get the ball into the box, and Kenshiro Daniels is able to rise up and score. Now here's an example from our second goal late in the match against Thailand. Holtmann is driving with the ball, but he's going to end up finding Rafael Obermeier. Now, Obermeier has a couple choices here. As a complete wingback, he has the opportunity to go and try to beat his man, or, as we have seen sometimes, he can play this ball in behind and find Holtmann, who is making that run in behind. Both options work here, but instead Obermeier decides to take it around his man, swing the ball into the box, where we're going to find Sebastian Barak, and find the back of the net. And now moving into that match against Uzbekistan, this is an example of a goal when Obermeier will find that run of Holtmann getting in behind. We see here we have our triangle of players. We have Arribas, Holtman, and Obermeyer here. And as we extend the play, we have Holtman running in behind, Obermeyer who plays it into him. And now Holtman has all kinds of space to get the ball into the box. He finds Conchero Daniels at the back post, and those four players have been able to combine to score. And this will be our final goal example. And if you are looking to modify this tactic for yourself, it will be important that those wing players are looking to get in behind. Because as we can see here, Strauss plays the ball in between to Holtman. This is how this whole play starts. Holtman makes an amazing layoff to Barak, and Barak is able to find the back of the net. So those are good examples of how the build-up play works with this formation in order to get goals. Now, the only other thing that I would add to this formation is if you find that you're going up against maybe a 4-4-2 formation or something where there's two here and not an attacking mid here, something that you can do to apply a little bit more pressure is just move your ball-winning midfielder up here. If you're going to do that, you are moving your advanced playmaker now to the left. Or if you have better players on the right, move them to the right. But if you are going to do that situation, I find that it helps to focus play down the left. And sometimes even if you want, you can overlap down the left as well. But that helps to focus the play with your playmaker and among these three players so that you're able to work the ball a little bit more on this side. And then if you're able to go to a 2-flat formation, this can help to counter a 2-flat midfield that you're going up against and help to prevent their build-up play from occurring. Now, I would be remiss to have this tactic video without talking about where the tactic can be vulnerable. And the biggest issue where you might see some vulnerability is if your complete wingbacks are getting forward and they are getting behind in those wide spaces with wingers. In that case, especially if you have a deeper line, they might get in behind and look for a cutback. So if you are looking to, again, potentially modify this tactic to counteract that, you could drop these two players here or employ the center backs as wide center backs to go out and go into those areas to pressure. And then, of course, you can also go into the lines and improve your lines, especially if you're a little bit of a better side or you have a bit more pace than I do in your central defending areas. And that will help to engage those players a little bit earlier, engage them higher up the pitch, and make you less vulnerable to goals from those types of wide into the box situations. But otherwise, those are the details of the 3-3-1-3, which has been my favorite underdog tactic in FM24 and has been the main formation and tactic that I have used to qualify the Philippines for the World Cup. So again, this is that underdog tactic. If you feel like your team has the personnel for this formation and tactic, feel free to give it a try. You can try it with this. You can try it as we did with the Crystal Palace, where we were a little bit more forward thinking. Or you can even take the basics of this tactic and modify it to your own needs. Maybe you end up employing something more like this to be a little bit more forward thinking. You might push up the lines or just take the basics and the principles of the tactic and use it with your own formation. That is everything that I have for this video. I hope you've enjoyed this tactical breakdown, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!